Hi, I'm Toby Stiles from the Metro Toronto Zoo. We're going to take a look at zoo babies. Now, to the visitor who comes to the zoo, zoo babies are wonderful. They're cute and they're roly-poly and they're always fun in the spring and in the summer to watch them play and grow. And to us who work in the zoo, they are too. But there's something else. They are important for the survival of many of these species. Today, throughout the world, animals are faced with extinction. And the babies born in zoos and in reserves are in many cases the only hope for survival. We are now starting to put some of the babies born in zoos back into the wild where there's a safe place. The wood bison are a great zoo success story and a Canadian zoo success story. These animals were once thought to be extinct, and a small group of them were rediscovered in Wood Bison National Park, which is in northern Alberta and into the Northwest Territories. A few of these animals were removed to Elk Island National Park near Edmonton, Alberta. The government worried that all the animals being in one place, if there was a disease outbreak, they could lose them, separated some of these and sent them to zoos in Calgary, in Winnipeg, Toronto, and in San Diego. We've been very successful breeding them, and we have now sent 2 shipments of wood bison back to the former range in Manitoba, and they've been released to the wild, and this is going very successfully. This program has been so successful that wood bison, which were once on the endangered species list in Canada, have now been removed from endangered to just vulnerable. And this is a great happening. Usually when an animal comes off the endangered species list, it comes off because it's extinct. And it's good to have a few successes that shows where government and zoos working together with the World Wildlife Fund and other agencies can actually help bring an animal back from the edge of extinction and return it to its former range. We hope in the future to be able to do this with species such as snow leopards and Siberian tigers and so many other animals that are critically endangered in their native habitat. The Canada geese that you see here share the habitat with the wood bison quite nicely, but they're not our animals. They live here and we enjoy having them here, but they're wild animals. They're wild birds that on their way north or south stopped by the zoo one day, found there was lots of food here. They'll eat the same food the bison do, that there's lots of open water and they're safe and protected. Nobody hunts them, so they just stay over. They don't bother migrating anymore, and we're very glad to have them as part of the zoo family. The African lions are an interesting baby story at Metro Zoo and any other zoo. One of the problems in the zoo world today is you can have too many baby animals. So we have to be careful we don't bring unwanted babies into the world. So what we have done is our veterinarians implant a small time-release birth control pill under the skin of the female lioness, which releases a small amount of hormone each day, which prevents her from cycling, and so she doesn't get pregnant. As an on-needed basis, probably every 2 years, we remove the implant from one female, allow her to breed, have cubs and raise them, and once we found good homes for them, either in our zoo or some other zoo, then we reimplant her and allow another female to breed. This way, all the females stay good biological mothers and know what to do, and we don't bring a bunch of unwanted lion cubs into the world that end up in undesirable homes. One thing that's very important with each new zoo baby is that within 24 hours of birth, it's examined by zoo staff, and the veterinarians give it vitamin shots and make sure it's healthy. Then we tag it with an ear tag or sometimes a tattoo so we can track its life cycle throughout its history in the zoo or even when it goes to another zoo. So each animal is individual, has its own set of records. Zebras are one of the most popular of all zoo animals, probably because of their resemblance to the horse, which is their relative. They're only found in Africa, south of the Sahara Desert, and there's several different kinds, which we'll look at. Zebra babies, probably one of the most charming of all babies. They're born after an 11 to 13 months gestation period. They're a spitting image of their parents, except that the stripes are not very black, they're more brownish. And zebra babies are precocial. Within 30 minutes of birth, they're up and running with the herd or with the family. And of course, this is important in the wild because if they don't get up and run, they get eaten by a hyena or a lion. In the zoo, it doesn't really matter, but those instincts are still there. Now, the Damara zebra are from Southwest Africa, and they have these broad stripes on their rump, very few stripes on their lower legs, and a tiny little brown stripe in between the big black stripe. The interesting thing about zebras is no two zebras in the world are striped the same. It's just like fingerprints, everyone's different. The Japanese macaque is the most northerly of all primates, found on the most northern tip of the islands of Japan. Sometimes called the snow monkey because in the winter they do live up in the mountains where there is snow and will go into hot springs to get warm. Like all primates, the mother with a baby is very, very high position in the troop, and all the other monkeys in the group look to her and help make sure that she stays safe with that baby for future generations. The interesting thing about Japanese macaques is they're the animal that's the monkey that's featured in all the Buddhist sayings of hear no evil, see no evil, and speak no evil. Japanese macaque baby, when it's born, like a lot of baby primates, is black. They're a very dark color, and it changes color as it leaves the mother and starts to wander on its own. For the first 4 or 5 months, it hangs on the mother's stomach or rides on her back as it gets older and never leaves her. About 5 or 6 months of age, it starts to wander, starts to change color. But when it's black in the troop of monkeys, it's got the highest ranking because it's very important that they all protect it. When it gets brown and becomes a little brat kid, they're not so fussy about, and they'll start chastising it. Baby snow leopards are a result of a great international cooperation between zoos. The father came from Moscow, one of the mothers came from Milwaukee, the other mother came from Winnipeg. And it's a good example of how zoos cooperate across the globe to save endangered species by reproducing them in captivity. Reindeer are a domestic animal. They've been domesticated in Scandinavia for thousands of years, where they're used for riding, pull sleighs for their wool and for their milk and meat. Baby reindeer are born in the spring and very quickly are up and following the mother and the rest of the herd. Patas monkeys are unusual monkeys because they're ground dwellers. They're sometimes called the greyhounds of the plains. They're found in the savannas of Africa, in the northern part of Africa. And they live predominantly on the ground, very, very fast runners. Baby Patas monkeys, like most monkeys when they're born, are relatively helpless, but they can hang onto the fur with their own hands. And they'll hang on the mother's breast for the first 3 or 4 months, and then after that they'll start riding on her back throughout the day, and at 6 or 7 months of age then start venturing on their own and eating on their own. But for the first little while, they're much like a human infant, where the mother actually holds her to the breast, but the monkey itself holds on. The giraffes are the tallest of all living mammals. They grow up to 18 feet at the top of their horns. When they're born, it's the most fascinating thing to watch. They're 6 feet tall when they're born. They're 120 pounds. The interesting thing is the mother, when she gives birth, is standing up, so the baby has to fall 7 or 8 feet to the ground. And when we first saw this, everybody thought this was quite a dangerous thing for the baby. But it's since been studied and filmed in slow motion, and when you slow the tape down of the baby being born, you can see what the mother has done as she gives birth standing up. She actually walks around and she gets the baby swinging like a pendulum, and then she expels the baby when it's parallel to the floor. It lands with great force from 6 or 7 feet in the air on the floor, and this is actually like the doctor slapping on the back to get them breathing. And this sort of wakes the baby giraffe up, and within about an hour it's up and it's nursing with the mother, and within 2 or 3 days it can follow the mother. Now, giraffe babies don't normally follow the mother throughout the day. They stay by themselves in a thicket, and she returns to them in the evening and throughout the day to nurse them, but most of the time it hides until it's about 10 feet tall. Giraffes are full grown at about 7 or 8 years of age, and the males are much darker and much larger than the females. The gestation period, the period of pregnancy, is 14 and a half months, so it's a very large pregnancy and, of course, for a very large animal. These are the real kids of the zoo world. These are West Caucasian tur, which is a type of mountain goat. Of course, mountain goat babies are called kids. They're found in the Caucasian mountains of Central Asia. One of the great climbers of the animal kingdom. The babies, within 30 minutes of birth, climb right up steep cliffs, follow their parents. And of course, this is important for their survival, so they don't get picked off by an eagle or a wolf. Like so many animals today, tur are very threatened in the wild. Fortunately, they do very, very well in zoos. And in the future, baby tur born in zoos around the world will perhaps be reintroduced to their native habitat in Asia. These baby green water dragons, like most reptiles, hatch from eggs. But unlike mammals and birds, the parents have nothing to do with raising the babies. The babies have to be able to take care of themselves from the instant they hatch. So they have to be able to walk or climb or hunt or whatever. As you can see, this baby has not at least been interested in his cricket for lunch. It's very important that these babies' survival that they be camouflaged, so they hide in a tree and they can't be seen by their enemies. The river or Nile hippopotamus is the second largest living land animal, second only to the elephant. They have the most fascinating family life. The female, after a pregnancy of 8.5 months, gives birth to an 80 to 90 pound baby, but she gives birth underwater. This is very unusual in the whole animal kingdom except for whales and dolphins. But of course the hippo spends half its time in the water and it's much safer there. What happens is she expels it. Baby hippo is launched like a little torpedo. There's a burst of bubbles. There's a little hippo pops to the top of the water and its little ears going just like mom. And it can swim right away. And in fact, it nurses in the water. The mother is so large, she finds it easier to turn on her side to expose her udder, which is just like a cow's udder, back between her legs. And the baby comes up, takes a breath, goes down, drinks for 10 or 15 seconds, goes back up. And this is how the baby develops. They develop very quickly, and they're full grown and start having young at about 4 years of age. The pygmy hippopotamus is a rare forest-dwelling animal from West Africa. The adults weigh about 500 pounds. This 2-day-old baby only weighs 8 pounds. Unlike the other hippos, they spend most of their time on land. The babies are born on land and nurse on land. They're very rare, but fortunately doing very well in zoos. The cheetah is the fastest of all land animals. Unfortunately, they're very rare and endangered in the wild and difficult to breed in captivity. These babies, by careful monitoring by the zoo staff, were discovered to be losing condition. So unfortunately, they had to be pulled for hand rearing by the zoo staff. One of the most important things the staff must do is feed the animals, monitor their condition, but at the same time not make the animals pets, because we want them to grow up and know that they're cheetahs. The orangutan is the second largest of the great apes. Apes are different than monkeys, so they don't have tails. Orangutans are found in Sumatra and Malaya and are gravely endangered species. Their forest home is being cut down at a rate of about 50 acres a minute. So they only hope for survival is in reserves and in zoos like this one, where they breed fairly well. Now, orangutan is a Malay word that means old man of the forest or old man of the trees. And even the babies, when they're newborn, look like old men. One of the most interesting things that happens at the zoo is when a mother orangutan has a baby, she's fascinated by human mothers with their babies. She'll come over to the glass and she'll peer intently at the mother's baby, and she'll take her baby off her breast and show it. Just comparing children, just like two new mothers meeting on the street. They're just really fascinated. Now in the wild, orangutans are solitaries. The females stay apart by themselves just with their youngsters. But in captivity, they'll live quite nicely together. And even with the male, and the male is an enormous big animal, 300 pounds, incredibly powerful, but with the babies, he's very gentle. And you'll quite often see babies opening his mouth and taking food out, actually sitting in his mouth. And his mouth is big enough and strong enough to bite a coconut in half, which is one of their favorite foods. But with the babies, he's incredibly gentle. They really are gentle giants. It's the only way to describe orangutans. The African crown cranes are very precocial babies. That means as soon as they're hatched, within a few minutes, they're up and following their parents. The parents don't actually feed the babies, they teach the babies what to eat. The cranes eat a variety of foodstuffs, small bits of fruit, grains, and insects. They're very alert, always on the watch for predators. Most of the time, we allow the parents to raise their own chicks, but sometimes, to maximize production, we take eggs from the parents and artificially incubate them in the zoo incubator. When these babies hatch, then they're raised by zoo staff. Not all the babies are born in the zoo. This baby beaver, orphaned in the wild when its mother was killed in an accident, was brought to the zoo for rescuing. Here it's bottle-fed by the keeper, who becomes its mother. They're full-grown, weigh up to 80 or 90 pounds. This baby, at about 3 weeks of age, weighs just about 2 pounds. Now, they can swim. They know instinctively how to swim. They don't really have to be taught, but they have to be encouraged. So the keeper places the beaver on a rock in his little swimming pool to learn and practice his techniques. It's very important for the development of the beaver that the staff take it outside, allow it to get exercise and fresh air and sunshine, and allow it to explore its world so it develops as a normal, healthy adult animal. The lion-tailed macaque is a very rare monkey from southern India. Sadly, they're restricted to a tiny little national park. Fortunately, there's a worldwide effort in zoos to save these remarkable animals. In the future, babies such as this one and others will be returned from zoos around the world to the native habitat in the Indian forest. The Bactrian, or two-hump camel, is a domestic animal. There are no wild ones. And in the zoo, we keep this up by training them from a very early age. The keepers work with the animals, the camels give rides. It's not only good for the people who visit the zoo to ride a camel, but it's also good for the camels because we can brush them and maintain them. So from the day they're born, and they're quite big animals even when they're born, the keepers work with them and play with them and get them used to being around people. The slender-tailed meerkat is one of the most fascinating animals in the whole animal kingdom. They're a mongoose from the plains of Africa, a sociable mongoose. They live in a family group much like prairie dogs do, except they're carnivore. They eat insects and that type of thing. But the interesting thing about them is this family group of 25 or 30, only one female gives birth, and the one female gives birth to 3 or 4 youngsters, and the whole rest of the troop, males and females, old and young alike, help raise those babies. And when the babies get a little bit older and they're starting out of the nest and on their own, each individual baby is taken under the wing of one adult to teach it how to hunt and what's an enemy and what is good to eat, etc. And a lot more survive that way because there's 30 looking after 3 or 4. Even in the zoo where there are no enemies, and these animals have all been born in, they still always have one on watch. They have one up high watching for enemies at all times, even in captivity where there aren't any. This baby ostrich, hatched in the zoo's incubator, is being raised by the zookeepers. The baby thinks the keepers are its parents, and using this pipe to mimic the parents' feeding action, they teach the baby what to eat and how to eat. When full grown, it'll stand over 6 feet tall and weigh 300 pounds. The greater kudu, an antelope from South Africa, are very shy and nervous, particularly when they have a new baby to guard and protect. The Hamadryas, or sacred baboon, lives in the high arid mountains of Arabia in the Middle East. They're called sacred baboons because at one time the Egyptians took these animals and trained them to work in their temples and various religious ceremonies. And to this day, when you go to Egypt, you can see the hieroglyphics with the Hamadryas baboons in it. The baby baboons, like all baby primates, are the center of the family, the troop's existence, and they do everything to protect those babies because the baby's the next generation. Normally in the zoo, the mother gives birth and raises the babies without any help or interference from staff, and they do an excellent job of it. Clouded leopards are native to Southeast Asia, spend most of their adult life in trees hunting birds, and have become very, very rare in the wild. Fortunately, through international cooperation, they are doing well in captivity. This 6-week-old clouded leopard kitten at the Buffalo Zoo had to be removed from the mother to be raised by the keepers. Like most baby cats, this baby leopard has a terrific appetite. Has to be fed every 2 to 3 hours. Llamas are domestic pack animals from South America, and they're now commonly kept as pets in Western North America. The llama is related to the camel, except it doesn't have a hump. They come in a variety of colors, and they're bred, some bred especially for wool, some for riding, some for meat, and some for milk. In Western Canada, there are now 4-H clubs devoted just to llamas, and they have llama shows just like they have pony shows and pig shows and that type of thing. Mandrills are large forest-dwelling baboons from West Africa. Like most animals in the tropical forest, they're severely endangered as their forest homes are cut down. They live in a large family composed of an adult male, several females, and their youngsters. Now, the adult male has the big, bright, colorful face, and that's designed to scare other mandrills away and other enemies. The youngsters have a pale face, and they only get the color when they're fully mature at about 10 or 11 years of age. The sable are one of the largest of all the African antelope. Unlike most antelope, they don't run when chased by a lion or a leopard. They turn and fight. And in fact, lions have been known to be killed by the horns of a female sable protecting her babies. The South American capybara is the world's largest rodent. These relatives of the guinea pig, when full grown, weigh up to 120 pounds. The babies can follow their parents from immediately after birth. They spend most of their life in the water, coming on land at night to feed. The dwarf buffalo are native to the dense rainforest of West Africa. Gorillas are the largest of the great apes. They weigh up to 450 pounds in the case of a male, and a female about 200 pounds. The babies, however, when they're born, are much like a human baby, about 6 pounds at birth, after a 9-month gestation period. And much like a human baby, are very helpless at birth. They can't hang on like other monkeys do. The mother actually has to carry them. Now, occasionally, the female gorilla, for whatever reason, she's inexperienced or doesn't have enough milk or is sick, can't raise the baby. And in this case, we've had to take the baby away. And the baby is just like a human infant. It requires the same amount of love and care and play. It has to wear diapers so it doesn't foul its nest. And the keepers have to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for over a year, taking care of this infant just like it was a human. And at the same time, they want it to know it's a gorilla, so they make sure it always sees the other gorillas, so that eventually it can go back in with the gorilla troop or family and become a productive gorilla in its own right. I certainly hope you've enjoyed Zoo Babies. We've sure had fun bringing it to you. And I suggest you visit your zoo often, because there's Zoo Babies all the time.